Hey, what is up, everybody? This is the Daily Drive. My name is Breaux, and we have been unpacking this incredible story. It's found in Daniel chapter 3 of the Old Testament section of the Bible. And just a real quick rewind, King Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire, the big bad bullies on the block at that time, sets up this golden statue, and he commands everybody to bow before it and worship. And the three principal characters in this story, three guys named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they won't do it. And some jealous guys, they tattle on him, and it makes King Nebuchadnezzar furious. Let me go back and reread what we read yesterday to give us kind of an on-ramp into today. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I've set up? I will give you one more chance," because he's thinking these are really good guys. They're three of the most valuable members of my administration. Maybe they didn't quite understand. I need to give them another shot. "If you will bow down and worship the statue I've made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments, all will be well. However, if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And let me ask you, what God will be able to rescue you from my power then?" Verse 16, they replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, your majesty can be sure that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. The God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power." And did you catch that next phrase? But even if he doesn't, man, that is packed with such faith. They're saying we know he sees the big picture, and we trust not only his power, but we trust his heart. We believe that he can do this. But if he chooses for some reason not to, then we're going to trust his unfailing love. I love the story that Stu Weber tells of the family vacation at a lake home. And the 4-year-old fell off the dock, and he couldn't swim very well. And the dad had his back turned, and he heard a splash. And Dad turned around and saw his son was gone. So he ran on the dock, and he dove in. And he finds this little kid holding his breath underwater with his arms and legs wrapped around the dock post. He grabs his kid, breaks through the surface, and he says, "What were you doing down there?" And the little boy goes, "Just waiting for you, Dad. Just waiting for you." And that was these three guys' attitude. Our Father, our God will show up. We don't know how, we don't know when, but he always does. And we're going to trust that. Well, verse 19, Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual, probably to match his anger. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace fully clothed. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames leapt out and killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell down into the roaring flames. My wife went through Beth Moore's study of Daniel a few years ago, and she reminded me how, talking about this particular story, Beth says that sometimes God delivers us from the fire. Sometimes God delivers us through the fire. And sometimes he delivers us by the fire, straight into his arms. Now, that first scenario, from the fire, that sounds the best, doesn't it? The first thing we do when things start to heat up is pray that the fire would not touch us, that it would just go around us or pass over us. And you know what? It's right to pray those kind of prayers. There's not a lack of courage to pray for healing or protection or miracles. Sometimes he delivers us from the fire. And sometimes he delivers us through the fire. That's what he's done and is doing for so many of us. We have a friend in stage 4 cancer. Her attitude is amazing. It's what brought her into a relationship with Jesus Christ. She talks about the new perspective on life that she has, all the internal growth that he's done in her. She said, "I know he will walk with me through this. And I've already filled in the blank. If blank, then God, he is with me." The Bible teaches that the tough stuff we go through refines our faith and makes it come out shining like gold that gets forged by the fire. And I've learned personally that kind of fire, it can just burn the fake out of you and make your faith and character genuine. Sometimes he delivers us from the fire. Sometimes he delivers us through the fire, and sometimes he delivers us by the fire, straight into his arms. He did that for a friend. She was in a horrific wreck that sent 3 people to the ICU and 6 to heaven. They say she died on impact. In a recovery program, she was experiencing brand new life. She was loving God like never before. She was doing great. She was recently baptized. She was so alive. But she'd had a tough life. She wrestled with years with drug addictions and alcohol. She lost a daughter. And that night, she was driving, heard a boom, and the next thing she knew was, wow, this place is awesome. There's Jesus. There's my daughter. And when that happens, our faith is made complete when we stand before our rescuer. Sometimes he delivers us from the fire, sometimes through the fire, and sometimes by the fire, straight into his arms. And I think that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thinking that this was either going to be the first scenario or the last one. I think they probably thought that either God would soon intervene and they would not be thrown into the fire, or they were going home to see their Maker. I don't think that it ever crossed their minds that they could actually make it through the fire. But check it out, verse 24. But suddenly, as he was watching, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes," they said, "we did indeed, your majesty." "Well, look," he shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire. They aren't even hurt by the flames. And the 4th looks like a divine being." Now, biblical scholars have different opinions about who that 4th man in the fire was. Could have been an angel. God could have done that. I think that's cool. But I believe that the way that this verse is translated in many texts, the Son of Deity or the Son of God, suggests that this was the very presence of Jesus himself. He was right there in the fire with them. And you know, Jesus is called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And he is. And I know that some of you are going through some painful stuff, some hard stuff, real stuff. You're experiencing some pretty intense heat in your life. But he's with you in the fire. You are not alone. Listen to your Father say this to you in Isaiah 43. "When you go through deep waters, I'll be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. For I am the Lord your God." And it said when, not if. Because we're all going to walk through some fires. We're all going to be faced with some scary things in life. But if blank happens, then God. He's always with us. Nothing can separate us from his unfailing love. He has prepared a better place. And Rakshak and Benny had supreme confidence in all of that. And I pray that you have confidence in that too. If you know Jesus, then you know that nothing can separate you from his love, and that heaven is our real home. We're going to wrap this up tomorrow, but let me just leave you with these verses from 1 Peter chapter 1, beginning in verse 4. I love this. "God has reserved for his children the priceless gift of eternal life. It is kept in heaven for you, pure and undefiled, beyond the reach of change and decay. And God, in his mighty power, will make sure that you get there safely to receive it because you're trusting him. It'll be yours in that coming last day for all to see, so be truly glad. There is wonderful joy ahead, even though the going is rough for a while down here. These trials are only to test your faith, to see whether or not it's strong and pure. It is being tested as fire tests gold and purifies it. And your faith is far more precious to God than mere gold. So if your faith remains strong after being tried in the test tube of fiery trials, it'll bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day of his return. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.